Hi everyone and welcome to my studio. I'm Chris and today we're painting this cheerful little light bright penguin. One of 3 designs from my newest collection, Light Bright Ornaments. Perfect for brightening up your holiday decor. I'll be sharing tips, tricks, and techniques to make painting easy and impressive. So whether you're a beginner or an experienced painter, you'll love how fun and easy this project is. So grab your brushes and let's get started. I did trace the little line between his face and his top of his head, and I'm loading my 3/4 inch oval wash with buttermilk. I love this brush. Look how it just naturally curves around those rounded shapes. It makes it super easy to get it fairly even and symmetrical. And I use enough water so that the paint flows on smoothly. Nice long strokes, let it dry, and give it a second coat. Now I do want his face area to be a little bit brighter. I've loaded my number 10 Fantastic Filbert with Snow White. Start in the middle. And then I do that slip slap stroke and just kind of walk the paint out and let it soften toward the outer edges. Where his eyes and nose are, it's going to be just a little bit brighter. Makes his face sparkle more. When it dries, white always dries softer, so let it dry. And add a second coat until it's nice and bright in that area. Now I'm using my 1/2 inch angle. I love it because you see how I tucked the toe of the brush in that little V area. Makes it super easy to take that sharp edge of the brush and just follow that contoured line. And then once I get that line edged in there, then I can just go back and fill it in. And I'm just going straight across. I want to paint that topper to look like a light bulb topper. With the soft black, may or may not need a second coat, but you'll be able to tell. If you have nice smooth strokes, you may be able to eliminate that second coat. Loaded my oval wash with salted caramel and painted the topper. Nice smooth long strokes. To do the face, I usually just take a pencil and kind of sketch in the details. If you pick up the pattern, it has line drawing in there. I find it much easier to use a template to do the eyes. This is my Painter's Pal. I've loaded my spectacular stencil brush with soft black. Wipe it over a paper towel to remove any excess paint on the brush. That will ensure nice, clean, crisp edges on the eye. And I'm just gently tapping it and then lift it up. 2 light coats are better than 1 heavy coat. I always like my eyes to tilt in just a little bit. It seems like it gives it a little more personality. While that is drying, I'm base coating his beak with Moon Yellow. And I'm using my number 5 radical round. It has a nice point on it. It enables me to get those small areas, and then I can press down. It brush fans out, and then I can paint in more solidly. I'm painting the upper beak the same color as the bottom beak, but I paint them in separate sections. It just almost, after it dries, you can almost still see those 2 separate sections. It just makes it easier to keep track of that, where the top and the bottom are separated. Using my Epic script liner just to add the eyebrows, and I did go back and add a second coat on the eyes. And I'm adding the eyelashes as well. It just adds a little bit of whimsy to add those cute little eyelashes. Have enough moisture, water on your brush that the paint flows. To give a little life to the eyes, I'm picking up just a touch of Aqua Sky on the toe of my 1/4 inch angle and floating it on the bottom and right side. Now I'm adding just a hint of raw sienna on the beak to help separate those out along the bottom. And then my shadowing is going to be kind of on the bottom and the right side. So I'm going to allow the top and the left side just to be a little bit brighter. And I'm just taking light cinnamon and I'm going to shade it around his eyes and his eyebrows, just below his eyebrows. It looks a little messy, but I have a lot of moisture with my paint. So now that it's on, I can take my brush and just move it around until I get it exactly smoothed out and exactly where I want it. Taking that light cinnamon, just going to kind of float around the outer edge of his face, creates that dimension. And this, again, I have a lot of moisture, so I can go a long way before I have to reload. Gives you more a continuous stroke, more continuity. With my angles, they have a longer length, so you get a longer stroke. Need to go around his mouth. And you can see now that the mouth, or his beak, and his eyes and eyebrows have that shading around it. They look like they fit in his face and not just painted on. Adding a little bit of buttermilk to the beak to brighten that up. Add a little highlight. Little bit of Snow White in the eyes just to float in there to brighten it up. Adding a dip, dot, drag, comma stroke. Dip, dot, drag makes perfect comma strokes. A couple little highlights in his eyes, and look how they sparkle. I love doing the eyes this way, so simple. Going to add the nostrils with the small end of my stylus. Dip, dot, and drag. It's going to make that teardrop nostril just perfectly. I picked up a little bit of Wild Berry on my number 10 diverse dry brush. Just going to dry brush the cheeks. Now I want the cheeks to be the same on both sides. So if I paint them at the same time, they build up evenly. Always when loading a dry brush, make sure you do rub majority of the paint off on a paper towel. You'll get that beautiful blush on the cheeks. Taking my Epic script liner and Snow White, just want to paint a fun starburst snowflake on his cheeks. This just adds a little more whimsy. And if you keep an eye on it as it dries, you may need to go back and reinforce that white. Using a fairly big end on my stylus to add dip dots on the center and at the tip of every tine. And look how cute that is. He's just a happy little guy. If you dip dot after every dip, the dots will all be the same size. So unless you want them to be different in size, make sure you dip after every one. I've loaded the toe of my angle with light cinnamon just to float along the bottom of those ridges. It's a very loose float, which means it has a lot of moisture in it, and it's not a fussy float. Just to define those ridges, I've loaded my diverse dry brush with light buttermilk, and I'm just going dry brushing. Look how easy that is, just to add a little bit of a highlight. Picked up some white on my Epic script liner to add a few just stronger highlights, and it's just load it and drag it across. It doesn't have to be perfect. I have picked up a bit of raw umber on the bottom of my palette knife, very, very thin amount, just dragging it around. This is optional. I like this little bit of grunge look. It's very trendy, but it's easy to overdo. Just a minimal amount of paint and reload often. It just adds that element of texture and interest. I was going to splatter it, but I didn't want it in his eyes, so I covered his little face up, loaded my splatter brush with Snow White, and splattering it across the penguin. And I'm using my splatter brush. I have fairly good control with this, so I'm just kind of zooming it a little closer. Picked up some Snow White on my stylus, just to add a few. I didn't want his face completely bare, but I didn't want it to have all in his eyes. So I'm going back, adding some stronger snowflakes. Used a cosmetic sponge. These are the little wedges with a flat bottom to base coat the snowflake with. I did it with buttermilk and then went back with Snow White. Just a very light tap, a little bit of paint, keeps those side edges crispy, clean, and clear. Now I'm going over it with varnish and coating it with Crystal Glamour Dust to add a little bit of sparkle. I did make a bow out of some jute and added a little bit of greenery glued that on and put the snowflake there, and I think it turned out just adorable. Thanks so much for painting along with me. I hope you had fun creating Light Bright Penguin and picked up a few new tips and tricks to make your painting life easy and impressive. Be sure to check out the other 2 ornaments in the Light Bright collection. If you painted my Twinkle Light Ornaments, these pair perfectly together for a cheerful, cohesive holiday display. All of the supplies, patterns, and surfaces are listed in the links below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and remember, a little bit of paint makes a big difference.